Hey guys, Season 6 is coming closer and closer, and today I want to share what I believe will be the most powerful and fun leveling build for the rogue class. So if you are one of this 10% player base who are not starting with the new Spiritborn class, then this video should be very helpful for you. So in fact, I also had access to the early version, so to the preview version of Vessel of Hatred, so I could also test this in the live game, and yeah, just try to make a rogue and level it from 1 to 60. And yes, I will share everything I've learned so far with you, and obviously also share this build. So let's continue with some further gameplay video here. So in the beginning, my goal was to make a build around the new Dance of Knives ability. So this is the new rogue skill that we will receive with Vessel of Hatred for everyone who purchases the DLC. And yeah, obviously Dance of Knives is a very fun skill. I think a lot of players will enjoy it. Maybe also some of you already have tested it during the latest Season 6 PTR. But besides that, it's very fun. I personally have to say that it didn't feel too powerful in the early leveling phase. So for that reason I compared it to my OG favorite, which is Flurry. And I must say Flurry is just way more potent, so we can just deal way more damage with Flurry. I just found one aspect for Flurry, and once I equipped that, my damage just exploded basically. So Flurry for me is still the #1 skill to level your rogue in the early phase of the game, but I tried to make a combination of both skills in this build, in this setup. So Flurry is our main damage skill, and Dance of Knives is more like a mobility and a utility skill. So here you can see, instead of moving around, normally I just use my Dance of Knives in order to dance through the entire map, and this way I increase my mobility because Dance of Knives gives us some additional movement speed, which is kind of helpful in the early game. So instead of dashing around, you can just also dance around with Dance of Knives. And besides that, it also has some further advantages. So for example, it has some very nice synergies with imbuement skills in general. So here I'm playing with Shadow Imbuement. And what is pretty cool about this new ability is that you can use Shadow Imbuement and it will not consume any further charges as long as you keep channeling with your first Dance of Knives channeling, let's say. So you just have to continue channeling, and you will not lose any Shadow Imbuement stacks or charges. And for that reason, you can, for example, start each combat with applying Shadow Imbuement to the enemies with your Dance of Knives, and then finish them off with the damage of your Flurry. So I think this is a pretty solid combination. So yeah, just helps you with this early game Shadow Imbuement management of the skill and the charges. It will also give you a bunch of resources back, so Shadow Imbuement, very potent skill in the early game, a lot of AoE damage, a lot of resource regeneration. So yeah, I found this combination pretty fun and powerful. But just keep in mind that you won't deal that much damage with your Dance of Knives, and that Flurry still will carry you through most content here in the early game. And Dance of Knives is more like a mobility and utility skill. And we also have some further support skills. So we have, for example, the Smoke Grenade, which I would just use on every elite pack, like you can see here. Then you will deal more damage to them. And also it has some very nice synergy with something like Trick Attacks, a very powerful passive skill from Rogue, which gives you 36% crit chance and crit damage. So yeah, very broken passive. And we also have Dark Shroud, which of course helps you with surviving, but also gives you more movement speed and critical strike chance, so also very powerful in the early game. And Shadow Step, just for situations where you are in danger and need to escape some dangerous situations, and if you get crowd control or something, then I would use Shadow Step. But yeah, this is basically the build. We just kill everything with Flurry, especially if we need AoE damage, with Flurry and Shadow Imbuement, and Dance of Knives just as a mobility and utility skill. And also versus bosses, you can see once we run out of energy with Flurry, we can also just channel our Dance of Knives, and it will still deal some amount of damage. So versus single targets, it's not that bad actually, but just the AoE damage is a bit lacking from that skill. So yeah, that's why Flurry is still better, but versus single targets, it's not too bad actually. And yeah, this was basically the build. I think it's pretty easy to understand. Then here, as always, I will have my mobalytics planner in the description and in the comment section, so you can just visit my planner here, my little guide on mobalytics, and you will find all the aspects that you need. And also all the skills, obviously. So here we're also playing with Inner Sight, by the way. Flurry has a lot of resource cost reduction with improved Flurry, or advanced Flurry. So here I think we are able to spam Flurry quite a lot, and we don't need to play with combo points. But if you have problems with resources, you can also switch to the combo points variant. But I think Inner Sight will be very powerful. So yeah, about aspects, you don't need all of these aspects, so the build is very potent even without any aspect. But here just put you everything that is best in slot for the early game, basically 1 to 60, and also just try to get the best aspects early on. So for example, aspect of encircling blades, you can target farm it. There's a dungeon, you can open your codex, search for this aspect, and it will show you the dungeon where you have to go, and you will get the like the first version of this aspect, which will be min roll, but still very good. And yeah, so just try to get this aspect at least as early as possible. I think Breakneck Bandits is an aspect you cannot target farm with dungeons, so you just have to be lucky to find it. And once you have the Momentum Key passive, you also want Vigor as early as possible, because it's just a very powerful, potent damage aspect as well. So yeah, just try to get these 3 aspects here as early as possible. And the rest is kind of optional, so you don't really need it in order to have a fun leveling experience. But of course, it's better to have them if you might find them at some point. So then I can also show you here, I can always recommend you to use this leveling path system or mechanic of mobalytics. So here you can just activate it, and you will see when exactly you need to skill into each of these skill points here. So the order is quite important for the leveling builds. So yeah, I can just recommend you to use this leveling path function here, and then you will have a good overview. I still have to update the Paragon board. So in my latest version of Season 5 Flurry, I had a lot of boards, but this got updated now, and we have only 5 boards available now. So we are capped at 5 Paragon boards. So I will update this. But yeah, the Paragon should be no problem. Just follow my Paragon guide when I uploaded it. And also I can say a little bit about uniques. So for example, we have this tacits of Dawning Sky unique. This is a unique pants, which is pretty good because it has a lot of all resistance as an affix on them. And one thing that will be more difficult than ever in Diablo 4 will be capping out resistances and armor. So for that reason, we have some uniques like the tacits of Dawning Sky. So this is like a mini version of the Turiel's Might mythic unique. So this will solve a lot of resistance problems early on. So I think it has something like 30 all res. With greater affix, you will have 50 all res. So if you're able to find it early on, then you're very lucky, and you can just immediately equip it, basically, because it will be very good in order to survive if the game becomes more difficult, especially in the early Torment tiers. So yeah, that's something I can tell you. Also, of course, I've listed here some other uniques that might be helpful for the build, and you might find them early on also, then you can just equip them. But in general, just you can freestyle here a little bit. I don't want to include any uniques in my leveling builds, so for that reason they're not mandatory whatsoever. Yeah, then also I want to mention that we have some new game mechanics with Vessel of Hatred. So we have, for example, the new rune system. But also here I can advise you to freestyle a little bit, because it's not likely that you will find the best runes early on. So you just have to use whatever you find on the way and be a little bit creative maybe. I can just recommend you to use the Gar invocation rune if you find it early on, so this will increase your critical strike chance by up to 25%, which is very helpful in the early game. And also the Cry rune I think will be very useful for the Flurry build, because you will just be able to pull in enemies. So this is like the Godslayer effect, the Vortex from the Spiritborn, the new class. It will work like Godslayer. You will pull in enemies in a very small area, and then your Flurry can just kill everything inside this area, basically. So yeah, I can recommend you these 2 runes. But yeah, you need to be a little bit creative here. There are a lot of runes, and yeah, it's not likely to find the one that you want that early. And also we have another new game system, gameplay mechanic, 1 second, which is here, this Mercenaries. So there will be 4 different mercenaries, and I also have them here in this mercenary tab from Mobalytics. And here you can see I'm planning with trying out Altkin first. So here you will play with Storm of Fire, and the idea is that we skill into this Eradication passive skill. So here it says enemies killed with Altkin's Firestorm explode for 120 fire damage, and this heavily reminds me of the Sorcerer class, which also has this enchantment slots where you can put in the Fireball enchantment, and then enemies will just explode and deal also AoE damage on their death, just like with Shadow Imbuement. So I think Eradication with Altkin will be a very potent choice for early leveling with every build, basically. So I would try out that first. And for Reinforcement, so Reinforcement is like only 1 skill from the Mercenary, which will get activated once you have 1 specific opportunity. So here, for example, we have the opportunity of player becomes endured. So every time you have less than 30% life, then right here, in this case, we'll cast his Bastion skill, and this one will protect me from incoming damage, so I will have 90% damage reduction for 5 seconds, so this can just save me from some dangerous situations where I might drop a lot of health. So for that reason, I think it's a very good choice for a Reinforcement mercenary here. So yeah, I think that's actually all. I can also give you some last tips, just because many players ask me about the affixes of my leveling builds, because most of the times I just have these aspects in my planner, but I don't have affixes, only on my weapon. For example, I have some important affixes, like here chance for Flurry to deal double damage. This is a very important temper and affix on the weapon. But often I don't have any other affixes, and the reason for that is I would just not think a lot about affixes in the leveling phase. So if you're just leveling your character from 1 to 60, then you should just pay attention to the item power, basically. So at least this is how I do it, because the item power is by far the most powerful metric. So the higher the item power, the more damage you can scale, and also you scale your armor with it, so you increase your survivability for defensive gear. So basically item level is the only thing I ever care about when I farm items or pick up items in the leveling phase. So for that reason I would not overthink this, guys. Just pick up whatever is the best item in terms of item power or item level. And of course, if you find a nice weapon and you can temper it at some point with a chance for Flurry to deal double damage in this case, then it's obviously very good. But you will replace items so often that it's just not worth it to spend too much time with that. So yeah, just enjoy your leveling phase without thinking too much about that. Yeah, and last thing I also forgot to mention, but I covered that kinda with the Tacits of the Dawning Sky talk. So capping out resistances will be kind of difficult. So here you also can a little bit, you can freestyle here a little bit. I can recommend using 3 different resistance jams, but maybe you'll find a better setup. It depends on the gear you find. So here you can also be a little bit more free in order to cap out your resistances. Okay, but that's it for the build. I think it's a lot of fun. Rogue is very good for leveling and very powerful, especially with Flurry. So I hope you guys will enjoy this. And yeah, you can leave me a like, you can subscribe to this channel to not miss any further videos. I will start with the Spiritborn this time, because I had a lot of fun with it during the preview version of Vessel of Hatred. But I will also transition back to Rogue at some point, and of course I will cover a lot of Rogue builds as well. So this time I will cover both Rogue and the new class Spiritborn. I also think you guys will actually like Spiritborn because it's the same, like the developer, the lead class designer is the same as for Rogue, as I understand it correctly. So there are a lot of similarities between these two classes. So yeah, I think you guys will also enjoy the Spiritborn quite a bit. But yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope we see us in the next video. So have a nice day, and yeah, bye bye.